go live now. Here's Julian Leeser.
And Indigenous leaders to develop a proposal for constitutional recognition. The idea we developed was different. It was organic, it was consistent with our constitutional heritage, and it was a uniquely Australian idea designed for Australian conditions. The proposal was called The Voice. It was a voice for Indigenous communities to our national leaders. It was a way of achieving constitutional recognition that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders have loved this land for centuries, but it also had a practical aspect. It was about creating a new structure to improve the lives of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples. And it was about finding common ground. I was so committed to this idea that I even set up an organisation called Uphold and Recognise to encourage constitutional conservatives to support the idea of the voice and get involved in the debate. With the referendum due later this year, I believe the time for the voice has come. I believe in local and regional voices. I believe in a national voice drawn from local and regional bodies, and I will support the referendum being put this year. I believe that the voice can help move the dial on Indigenous education, health, housing, safety and economic development. A short time ago, I resigned as Shadow Attorney-General and Shadow Minister for Indigenous Australians. I've had many respectful discussions with colleagues about the voice over the past year. I've listened to their views and they've heard mine, but ultimately I haven't been able to persuade them. It's clear that the Shadow Cabinet and the Party Room and I have taken a different position in relation to the voice. The Liberal Party believes in conscience and freedom. Unlike almost any other party in the Parliament, the Liberal Party gives backbenchers the freedom to champion the ideas they believe in. I want to exercise that freedom because I intend to campaign for a yes vote. I've loved my work as Shadow Attorney-General and Shadow Minister for Indigenous Australians, and I hope I've done some good. I resign without rancour or bitterness, and I remain a loyal Liberal, fully committed to the leadership of Peter Dutton. I've worked with Peter Dutton for many years. As the Shadow Minister, I've probably travelled with Peter Dutton more than any other colleague. I've seen him listen to and engage with Indigenous communities and Indigenous leaders. And he has a genuine desire to improve the conditions that Indigenous Australians find themselves in. Peter and I had a conversation about my position last December on The Voice, and we've talked several times since. They've been respectful conversations. Peter did everything he could to keep me. I respect that, and I respect him very much. But it was clear on the day before Shadow Cabinet and the Party Room meeting last week that I was in a different position to a majority of my colleagues. At that point, Peter and I agreed that I would take the Passover and Easter break to reflect on my position, which I've done. My resignation about today as a frontbencher is not about personality. It's about trying to keep faith with the very chords of belief and belonging that are part of who I am. Keeping faith with the first peoples of this land who want to have a stake in their own future, with a structural change in our Constitution to help improve the quality of their lives. Keeping faith with the Constitution, that invisible pillar that holds our nation together. Keeping faith with my parliamentary colleagues, men and women who believe in this country and work tirelessly for it every day. And keeping faith with my family and my community, who keep sending me to Parliament as their representative. But above all, keeping faith with my values. Liberal values based on a fair-minded conservative temperament that caused me to get involved in this issue more than a decade ago. As a Liberal, I believe in the dignity of every Australian, in what can be achieved when they are affirmed, valued and empowered. I believe better policy is made when the very people who are affected by it are consulted. I believe that through empowering people and by building institutions that shift responsibility and decision-making closer to people, we're more likely to shift the dial on Indigenous health, education, housing, safety and economic advancement. As a Conservative, I believe in our shared national fabric. We need to find common ground as Australians, not just on this issue, but on so many more. No great nation has ever been built by dividing it. Good nations engage in the search for common purpose and common ground. I believe that the government must seriously engage with coalition voters, and it hasn't done so to date. And this failure could ultimately put the referendum at risk. When it comes to the voice, I believe that Australians who remain to be convinced by the yes case fall into three groups. The first group are those opposed to the voice on philosophical or constitutional grounds. The second group are those who support the voice in principle or who want to support it, but who in the vast majority of cases have genuine doubts and questions about the proposal that the government's put forward. And the third group are yet to engage, but they too will have questions and concerns. I understand those concerns. I too have wrestled with them. I believe that during the committee and parliamentary debates in the months ahead, we can answer those concerns and put the referendum on a surer footing for success. Last Monday, I put forward a new amended model for the voice at the National Press Club. It was a model about putting the referendum on a safer footing. I did so because I don't think the referendum is tracking to success with support in the mid-50s. The Press Club model achieves three things. First, it affirms the importance of local and regional bodies as outlined by the Calma-Langton report and supported by the Coalition. Local and regional voices, connected into a national voice, are the way we can move the dial on the vital challenges so many local communities face. Second, it achieves constitutional recognition without using symbolic language which is out of keeping with the rest of the Constitution, removing questions and doubts about activist judges. And third, it leaves the scope and powers of the voice completely to Parliament, rather than turbocharging objections to disputed words in the Constitution. In other words, removing Clause 2 of the amendment. These changes will deliver a voice that is in every way constitutionally safe, a voice that honours Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Australians and gives them a place in our founding document, a voice that recognises that all of us have a shared interest in this land and its future and a shared support for parliamentary sovereignty in our constitutional system, a voice that is founded on common ground, a voice that will win because we've taken off the barnacles. The risk to our country and the risk to our shared national reconciliation project of failure and needs to be recognised by the government. An all or nothing approach could deliver nothing. That's why we must find common ground.